The film begins with Joan in the kitchen. Suddenly, she feels unwell and is unable to breathe, so she collapses to the floor and loses consciousness. At that moment, her husband, Bernard, is in the bathroom, and when he and their son, Connor, hear the sound of her falling, they rush to her. Connor calls an ambulance, and she is taken to the hospital. Upon arrival, Joan is taken into the operating room. On the other hand, Connor's older sister, Julia, is dropping her children off at school. During that time, Connor calls her and tells her that their mother is in the hospital. He also calls their sister, Molly, and informs her that their mother has been hospitalized and that her condition is serious. Then we move to the hospital, where Connor and their father wait for Joan to come out of surgery, while Julia calls her husband to tell him that her mother is ill and that she is heading to the hospital. However, he cannot come because he works in another state. Eventually, Julia and Molly arrive at the hospital, where Connor tells them that their mother has been in surgery for 2 hours. When Connor asks if either of them has contacted their fourth sister, Helen, they say they have not, so Julia calls her. When Helen hears the news, she becomes very worried and says she will take the first flight and come immediately. Later, Julia, her young children, Molly, and her children sit in the waiting room. Julia takes out some sandwiches for her son, and when she offers them to her nephew, his mother tells him they do not eat that kind of food because it is unhealthy. He refuses to take the sandwiches from his aunt, making it clear that the relationship between Julia and her sister is very tense. Eventually, their mother comes out of surgery and is transferred to her hospital room. The nurse, Angel, informs them that the doctor in charge of Joan's case wants to speak with them. The two sisters, along with Connor and their father, go to the doctor's office, where he tells them that the cancer has spread throughout Joan's body and that there is nothing they can do. He says it is only a matter of days before she passes away. Everyone is shocked. Molly becomes angry at the doctor, and Connor and Julia try to calm her down. However, she turns her anger toward Julia, accusing her of refusing to let their mother take her final chemotherapy dose, suggesting that it might have improved her condition. Julia responds that the doctors said the last dose would have no effect, and she did not want their mother to suffer more, so she refused it. But Molly insists that Julia was wrong. Julia then tells her that her words are unfair because she is the one who supports everyone the most. At that point, their brother intervenes and asks them to stop arguing and instead focus on making their mother happy in her final days. He then says he is going to check on her, and anyone who wants to see her can follow him to her room. They take the elevator up to the second floor. Meanwhile, Helen is at the airport, clearly anxious. At the same time, Angel tells them that before entering Joan's room, they should know she has just come out of surgery and may not be fully conscious. She might not even recognize them. He also tells them there is a bell next to the bed if they need anything. When they enter the room, Julia and Molly greet their mother. Joan tells Julia that she knows she has work and wonders why she came. Julia reassures her that she took time off to be with her. Joan says she is fine and there is no need to worry, then explains that she was in the kitchen when she suddenly felt unable to breathe, everything went dark, and when she regained consciousness, she found herself in this room. When she sees Molly's young daughter, she asks to hold her and comments on how much she has grown, saying she looks more like her and that it is a good thing she does not resemble Molly. Molly appears annoyed, while Julia laughs, and Joan does not notice the tension. Then Joan calls Connor and tells him that this year, for Christmas, she wants them to cook duck instead of the turkey they prepare every year. Her 3 children are deeply affected because they know she will not live that long. When 2 hospital counselors try to speak with the siblings, Molly becomes upset and tells them they do not need advice and that they will take their mother out of the hospital. Later that night, Helen arrives. Everyone greets her, and they are surprised to learn that she is pregnant and will give birth in a few months. At that moment, Connor realizes that they have all gathered because their mother is going to die soon. He becomes overwhelmed, leaves the room, and goes up to the 5th floor, where he finds a small chapel designated for patients' families, but the door is locked when he tries to enter. Meanwhile, Joan asks her daughters to return to their homes. They say goodbye and leave. Molly goes back to her house, while Helen goes with Julia to stay at her place. When Angel enters Joan's room to change her 4 fluids, he comments that she has a large family. She replies that they have not all been together for 3 years. Shortly after, Connor enters and tells his mother that he will take his father home. When they arrive, they discover that Bernard left the faucet running and that the apartment has been flooded. He takes his father, and they go to a restaurant. From there, he calls his sisters in a group call and tells them what happened. Molly insists that when their mother leaves the hospital, they should take her to her own home, saying that this is not up for discussion. She also tells Helen to stay with their father and Connor in Julia's apartment. Julia responds, "But I have a suite on the ground floor of my villa with a bedroom, a bathroom, and a separate living room. It would be suitable for our mother, our father, and Connor." Their father agrees with the idea, but Molly objects and insists on her. She says to Julia, "Do you mean my house is small and yours is big?" Their brother intervenes, saying this is not the time to argue, then ends the call, and everyone hangs up. In the morning, Julia tells her mother, "When you leave the hospital, come stay at my house." But Joan replies, "I want to stay in the hospital. I'm comfortable here." Helen says, "What matters is your comfort," and the doctor agrees that Joan can remain in the hospital. After that, Joan gives her wedding ring to Julia and tells her to keep it because it has started slipping off her finger and she's afraid of losing it. Julia takes it and wears it. Then Joan tells the doctor she does not want the injection placed in her abdomen all the time. He explains that it is important to prevent blood clots, but she insists on refusing it. The doctor asks Julia to sign a consent form to remove the injection at the patient's request, and Angel takes her to reception to sign it. At that time, Helen tells her mother she will decorate the room to create a Christmas atmosphere. When Molly arrives, she sees Julia signing and asks why she is signing instead of their mother. Julia tells her she is her legal guardian. Then Molly notices that Julia is wearing their mother's ring and asks her to give it to her, but Julia refuses. Molly says, "Fine, as you wish. Anyway, I've made a schedule for visiting hours so that none of you come at the same time." Julia responds, "My mother will stay in the hospital." Molly replies, "Then the schedule will be for visiting her here so that you and I don't meet." From that moment on, they begin visiting according to the schedule Molly places on Joan's room door. When Julia comes with her children on a day Molly is there, she takes them and waits in the cafeteria until Molly leaves. Since Helen is a yoga instructor, she performs rituals to remove negative energy and buys a comfortable sofa for her father and brother because they never leave Joan's side. Joan's 7 grandchildren decorate her room. As time passes, Joan grows weaker. Julia's children rehearse a nativity play in front of their grandmother that they will perform at school, and Joan is very happy watching them. Meanwhile, Connor goes to the chapel on the 5th floor. When he enters, he finds Angel there. He sits beside him and says he cannot believe his mother is going to die. Angel tells him that his own mother died when he was 8 years old, and he never got to say goodbye or fulfill her wishes. That is why he became a nurse, specifically caring for the elderly, to help them fulfill their wishes before death and give their loved ones a chance to say goodbye. After several days, Joan's condition worsens significantly. Angel helps her with everything. She thanks him and asks him to sit with her and watch her favorite program. During that time, she asks him what he thinks of her children. He says her son is kind, but the daughters have a complicated relationship. She tells him raising daughters is harder, but she must make them love each other again as they did when they were young. The next day, Julia arrives at the hospital. As usual, her husband calls and asks if she needs him. She tells him to stay at work, even though she actually needs help, especially that day because she brought a small refrigerator for her mother and couldn't carry it. When she arrives, her brother takes it from her. Her mother asks why she exhausted herself, and Julia says she brought it to offer cold drinks and chocolate to visitors. Their father says, "Why didn't you bring it earlier? I would have had a cold drink now." She does not respond. When she tells them she is leaving, her father asks her to take him to the supermarket to buy some things. After they leave, Joan asks Connor about the book he is reading. He tells her it is a poetry collection. She asks him to read to her as she used to do for him when he was young. He reads her an emotional poem about a mother, showing that he is the most attached to her. A little later, Helen arrives while her mother is in the bathroom. When she takes too long, Helen becomes worried. When Joan comes out, she says she is very tired and asks for water. Then she tells Helen, "I want you to always remember that I love you very much." Helen replies that she loves her too. After that, Helen sits outside the hospital. When Julia sees her, she sits beside her. Helen breaks down, saying she wished her son could feel his grandmother's love, but she knows he will never see her. She cries, and Julia hugs and comforts her. Then Julia goes up to her mother's room. Joan tells her she is happy she came and asks her to raise the bed a little. Then she asks if she will see Helen's baby. Julia, in tears, says she won't. Joan asks her to stay strong, support her sisters, and never let them drift apart. Julia promises her that. Julia then adjusts the bed toward the window so Joan can see the snow falling, which makes her very happy. To fix the relationship between Julia and Molly, Joan asks Angel to tell them she is dying and wants to see them. They rush to the hospital. When they arrive, their mother tells them she is fine and that this was the only way to bring them together. She then asks them to help her write a letter to Helen's son and instructs them to read it to him when he grows up. After they leave the room, they talk. Molly says she used to see Julia as her role model and imitated her in everything, but felt abandoned when Julia left home and waited for her apology. She also talks about the differences in their lives. Julia breaks down, saying she is exhausted from responsibilities and constant work, and that her life is not as easy as it seems. In the end, they apologize to each other and reconcile. When Connor sees them, he is very happy. A few days later, Joan is asleep while Bernard watches a match loudly. Connor gets angry and scolds him, then regrets it and goes to look for him at a bar. He finds him there singing, dedicating the song to Joan and asking people to pray for her. They return to the hospital, and Bernard sings Joan's favorite song to her and tells her he loves her. She returns the feeling. As time passes, Joan grows weaker. Julia suggests celebrating Christmas early so Joan can be with them. Everyone agrees, and they take her to the 5th floor, where her grandchildren perform the play for her. Before the performance ends, Joan passes away, and everyone is devastated. A year later, the family gathers on New Year's Eve, having dinner together. Joan's place is empty, and they place a dish with her name in front of her chair. And here, the film ends.